And we are live. Hello there. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Let's Talk Fishing video podcast. Guys, I'm excited about this. Everybody knows I live in southern Louisiana. Well, I got a guy here tonight who guides actually northwestern Louisiana. Actually, he guides one of the lakes that actually comprise the border between Louisiana and Texas, of Caddo Lake. A guy by the name of Vince Richards. How are you doing tonight, Vince?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. I understand. Man, them bass are spawning right now, aren't they?
Yes. The month of March is always awesome. The full moon of March is one of the most fun times on Caddo. The females just pull up, and every full moon of March is amazing.
Every full moon, every night of the full moon of March, huh?
Yeah, it's a lot of big females get caught that time of year out here.
And they got they got.
Oh yeah.
I can't even speak. I'm excited, man. This is exciting to hear about. Guys, the biggest bass to go into Vince's boat, he was telling me, 12.05 pounds. 12.05 pounds.
Yeah, but that if you think about it, 16 pounds is the biggest fish out here. And it was actually the funny story on that. It was 16, 17, and a year later, someone caught the same fish, and it weighed 16.07, but they had tagged it, so they knew it was the same exact fish. So there are some big fish out here on this lake.
Big 16.
Yeah, can you imagine?
16.17. I don't know if my heart could take that.
It would be fun to see.
So you're out there, you're guiding every day now, I'm sure. Man, how are you targeting giants like that?
On Caddo, they pull up on the cypress trees, and we tend to get in the spawning flats in about 2 to 3 foot of water. And one of my favorite things to do is to throw a wacky worm. I've got 3 over 10, 2 of those over 11 with a wacky worm. I got a client with one right at 10 on a wacky worm, and that's that. There's just not much more a fun bite, in my opinion, in springtime than to flip that wacky worm around a tree and watch your line swim off.
Man, I have so many questions. Okay, are you using spinning gear or bait casting gear for that?
I'm a bait caster guy. I have a lot of friends who tell me I'm nuts, but
no.
And I tend to go heavy.
You're not nuts. How are you going to hold on to a 10-pounder with 6-pound test mono?
I have guides I work with who throw a spin cast and do really good with it. I personally am going to be the guy out there with a Ambassador 641 Revo SX with and I tend to go small. I tend to go with a 6.6 or a 6.9. Again, I say it's going to be an Ambassador, and I don't get fancy on the rock out here. So so I'm gonna throw a 6.6 or a 6.9 medium heavy with a fast tip, something, because a lot of times you're in between these trees, and I like to be able to throw sidearm underneath there. So I'm throwing that wacky worm with a bait caster up against that tree, working it real slow, and in my mind, every cast could be a bite of a lifetime this time of year. So I'm throwing 17 pounds. I'm not throwing anything less than 17 pound up here.
I wouldn't either. Man, I think I told you I'm from the north. I've done a lot of, I guided too up north, but what I had to do is I would mostly target, riprap shoreline. So I would wacky rig with 6-pound test because the water was very clear. So we needed fluoro,
right? And
after you felt the bite, you set the hook, and you just had to pull the bass away from the rocks. Then you got open water. It's not like down here where if you're throwing a cypress, if you can see the cypress tree, there's 300 knees right underneath it.
Right.
And there's another cypress tree within 10 feet of it, and you got to get them away from that now. And if it's a 14-pounder, I don't want to be messing around with 6-pound tests in them.
Right.
And, I love my spinning gear. I have some of the top of the line spinning gear that there is. I'm very proud of it, but man, I'm not going to trust. Just like you, I'm not going to trust something that I might never, ever have the opportunity to catch ever again.
Well, I think it's you should trust your stomach, your gut, or whatever, however you want to say it. And I prefer a bait caster. I prefer I don't, like I said, I don't go any less than 17-pound fluorocarbon. And I mean, you get a 10-pound plus on Caddo. You know, you're talking about 2 to 3 foot. You're gonna have to just back off the drag, let them run, and try to keep up with them. It's almost like red fishing. Keep up with them until they wear themselves out, and then get them in the boat. But, you know, I don't. No, at this time of year, no matter, unless you're throwing braid, I wouldn't. I don't manhandle any of those females. I let them run their course, get tired, and then get them in the boat.
You know, that's one thing I like about down here. I wasn't able to tie direct to braid up north because the water was just too clear.
Right.
Down here, I find myself tying direct to braid a lot more as I lose more fish. You know, I hooked into a true giant in a private lake in over by it was in southwest Louisiana, just a private little pond. And I hooked into a true giant there with my spinning gear, and he got down to coontails, and I couldn't get him up.
Right.
And when I started to get some leeway, he took one more run, and, you know, all that vibrating going through the coontails, he wiggled himself loose.
Right.
I one of the few times in my life I actually pulled a Mike Iaconelli. Right then, right there, guy who barely knew me, tackle company owner, sat there and watched me on my knees screaming.
You know what though? That's what keeps you going back.
Yeah, temper tantrum. Just like a freaking 4-year-old.
Look, God gives us this love that we have. If it's love for fishing, or, you know, God gives you that. So
yes,
if you caught a 10-pounder every time you went,
yeah, I mean,
yeah, you know. So I mean, you need to be humbled every now and then, and you need to you need a day where you're like, man, you know, this makes you want to appreciate good days. It makes you want to go back.
It does. That really humbled me. I'm still talking about it. It happened 2 years ago.
But I'll tell you this, around 2008, 2009, I had one on that was probably around 14 pounds.
Jeez.
The biggest fish I've ever seen on a wacky worm. And I played it like a 5-year-old, like I never knew how to fish. And it was so big, I lost my mind. And it went around the boat and my boat got between the fish and the tree, and the female decided she wanted to go back to the tree. And so she ran right toward the middle of the boat. And so I'm reeling my rod in as she goes underneath my boat. I'm trying to give her a line and realizing that what a bad decision I have just done by letting my boat drift right in between the tree and the fish as she was running. And she snapped my line before I could do anything. And I sat there literally, like you said, and almost cried. But God was good to me. 3 days later, I caught an 1144 the same week. So, but that's Caddo. So if you come out here and spend the time, the days of the year that we do, you're going to have a big fish on. This lake just has a lot of good fish.
I believe you, man. I believe you. You know, the reason that I called you is, you know, I had been going over and over and over the footage of the Major League Fishing up there at Bussy Break and Darbone.
Right.
And I was looking around for somebody to talk to up there, an expert, a guy who lives up there and fishes there all the time. But then I found you, and, you know, what are you? You're probably an hour and a half away from those lakes, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
And you're almost on the same parallel. You're almost on the same parallel. You're just about, you know, the same north and south as they are. So that's where this lake is, guys. You know, it's a humongous, about 25,000 acres?
It's almost 27,000.
Sure.
It's got some amazing backwaters. And the cool thing about the lake is, other than the fact that God spoke it into existence, it's a natural lake. But the cool thing is the history of it. I mean, you've had presidents go down in steamboats. There's in the 1800s, Jefferson was like the second largest port in Texas. So they were steamboating cotton and all kinds of stuff down this thing. The lake has, it's a lot of history to it. So it's a really, the lake itself is really neat. Not just the fishing.
Is there a river that goes in and out of it?
There is. Big Cypress Bayou feeds it, and it actually runs through the lake, and then runs into the Red River, and and that's how they would get down to New Orleans back in the day. It's
Sure.
a lot of history to the lake.
And so Red River, that goes up into Texas.
No, Sabine River does. Red River runs from Oklahoma all the way down to toward New Orleans.
Okay. All right.
Unless I'm wrong, I may be wrong. But I think that's how the Red River runs that way. So that's how they used to get down to New Orleans.
Okay. So, okay, take us. So right now the fish are spawning.
Yes.
After the fish spawn, are you going to continue targeting the bass with the wacky rigs?
No, sir. You'll change. When those females spawn, they get done. They kind of move out on the grass, and you'll go to a swim bait. For me, there's nothing better than a Berkeley grass pig. Man, that thing is incredible to throw. Swim bait just thrown around over the grass, they'll destroy it.
So is that a soft plastic swim bait?
Yes, sir. It's like a power bait. It's a really good bait. Love to throw a frog over the lily pads. They'll, as the brims start bedding, those females get ready to eat again. They'll be around the brim. They'll be underneath the pads. They'll be around the grass. It can be really fun. May and June after the spawn, you kind of get away from the trees and you go to more power fishing. Topwater bait. And if we're lucky, and we haven't had too bad of a winter, the grass gets really thick, and you'll have grass lines in the bayous and in the rivers. You'll have stuff you can punch. So yeah. And I mean, who didn't like to punch? So it's.
Oh yeah, sure. Me living down here, I've done a lot of punching.
Right. Yeah, that is a fun bite.
It sure is. It sure is, man. Jeez. And so you're punching like what, like 2 feet from your boat?
Yeah, I mean, like if I'm attacking the bayou and there's a grass line, I'll be right on the grass line, and I love that weight. Really good weight for me. I feel like a 1.5 ounce. I love a Berkeley pit boss. Or a chigger crawl, Crazy Lake chigger crawl. Man, those baits are so good to throw just punching grass. The cool thing about that grass up here, well, I guess it's anywhere in the South where you're punching grass, is you just never know what you're going to have. I mean, you pitch in that grass mat, and you feel that bite, and then when you set the hook, you might have 2-3 pounds of grass on top of that fish, and you're trying to fight it through the grass. It's that's a fun way to fish.
That is, I do like to do that. I've done quite a bit of that down here. We have the Atchafalaya Spillway, which is just hundreds of miles of just fun. You've got, the Henderson, which is right over here, just west of me, Lake Biju, just huge bodies of water with endless canals to explore, and it all looks like it should hold fish, but it doesn't.
Right. Yeah, I can tell you up here, when they get on the punch bite, I'll only have one rod out. I enjoy it. I mean, it's now I will say this with clients: if you get clients that don't do that a lot, then you have to do other stuff. So that's when you start looking for schooling fish, some topwater action, frog action, fluke. We'll even go to a drop shot shaky head in the river. Those are things for people that don't fish a whole lot, that maybe you would use a spinning rod or need to be in open water. But if you get someone in your boat who's used to punching and the grass is setting up right, we'll do that most of the morning. That's a really fun way to catch fish.
So can you still catch fish around the cypress trees in the middle of summer?
You can, but it's not for me. It's not that good. They tend to on the Texas side where I mainly guide. It seems like once the spawn is over with, they like grass, so they're going to be wherever the grass is. They're going to be where the brim are. They're going to be around the pads. You can still catch a few on the trees, but that's not the player. You're looking for grass mats, you're looking for pads, and if you're lucky, like if we've had rain and we can have any kind of current, you'll have a bunch of schooling fish in May and June if you got current. So that's a whole different ball game there.
Yeah, it is. If I saw schooling fish, I'd probably get out a lipless crankbait.
Yeah.
Lipless crankbait. You can't say enough about it. It's a great way to cover large amounts of water very quickly.
Well, I'm gonna tell you up here, once the brim start bedding, a little pop-ar around the trees or around the grass. If you're in an area where you're smelling the brim, or you're hearing the pads pop, which is the way we locate brim up here a lot, you'll hear the pads popping and
shell crackers.
Smell them. Hey, they just like I always tell people when you're pad fishing, you pull up to some pads. If you're not hearing anything, if it's just completely quiet, you're probably not gonna get very many bites. If you pull up to a section of pads and you're hearing a pop, 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 if you're hearing activity, there's going to slow down, make really long casts with your frog or whatever you're throwing over there. But on the edges of that, you can attack it with a pop-ar.
Pop-ar, there's something that's been around since the 70s.
And still works.
Oh, it still works. Oh, heck yeah. So does spinnerbait. So do 6-inch ribbon tail worms.
Yes, sir.
All those things. The original floating rapalas. All those things still work, man. And, we just call them different names now, like jerk baits.
Right.
How about a jerk bait bite? Do you ever do that on Caddo?
I do in the wintertime. With the wacky worm in the springtime, I used to throw a jerk bait around the trees in the springtime, but with those treble hooks, it's a little okay. So with the wacky worm coming around to play, or even the fluke, it kind of took away that. You don't have to worry about it. But in the wintertime, end of October, November through January, we catch monsters out here in the river system and in the bayou system. Big females, getting ready for the end of the year, just feeding, and you catch them on Alabama rigs. And when they kind of get off of that, I'll go to a suspended jerkbait, and a lot of times you can go behind boats that have been throwing A rigs, and you throw that suspended jerkbait, and you'll catch fish because they kind of get numb to that A rig at times, and then for whatever reason they can't stand that suspended jerkbait.
Wow. Anyways, we have a question here. One of my good buddies named Cajun Rob says, "What's the best time of the year to come down and fish Caddo for bass?"
For me, I would say November and December, just for quality and quantity. That time of year, you can get in the river system throwing A rigs, spoons, crankbaits. Man, we have days where you can catch 20 to 30 blacks, and you may catch 20 to 40 more whites. The whites up here get massive in the wintertime. You're talking near 3 pounds on white bass. I mean, they just get incredible. So you get people.
What is that, 18, 19 inches?
Man, I don't ever measure them. They're just massive. But you get people that don't fish a lot, or you get a guy that brings his lady that she's like, well, I don't understand why you like to fish, and you're trying to get her hooked. When those white bass are running, anyone who's ever got on white bass with kids or with their ladies, they know how easily you can get hooked on fishing. And then you may catch 4 or 5 bass over 4 or 5 pounds the same day you're catching all the whites. But now, if you're going for a trophy, I definitely say March. It's the only problem with March is any cold front that comes through. This lake is probably different than any other lake around here. These Florida bass up here, and because the lake is so shallow, they're very temperamental, very moody. So you may have one day where you catch 25 fish and have, like we had a day 2 weeks ago where we caught almost 30 and had 10 over the slot, which you're talking about a 4-pound bass, right? So we had 10 over 4 pounds. 2 days later, a front came in, and I had a trip 2 days after the front. I think we had 1 fish. So
yeah, that's
the only bad thing with March. But if God's good to you and it's the timing's right, it'd be the best day you've ever had. I mean, it's incredible when the females move up.
It's the same way around here. You know, these fish are so weather temperamental, you know.
Right.
And also, you know, if the water is going up, you're not going to catch many
Right.
fish. But if it's going down and it's draining the swamp, as long as the black water doesn't come out of the swamp, you're going to catch fish. If the black water comes out of the swamp, it might just kill everything there, you know. But yeah, that's the way it is around here, you know. But it also, that's something you said that's very similar to around here. If you can find moving water, you're going to find feeding fish.
Mm-hmm.
It's rare.
Current is your friend and wind is your friend. Don't let anyone tell you different.
Well, wind just makes boat control difficult. And as the wind goes up, the fish get more excited. But then at the same time, it's, you know this.
Well, the day that we had the 30 fish with the 10 overs, I want to say we had like 35-mile-an-hour gusts. I mean, it was a horrible day. We just kept the wind to our back, and it was incredible to bite.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Sure, but that's
Oh,
awesome.
you feel it. You feel it when you get home because you're in that wind all day. But boy, it makes for a good day.
So, summertime, where would you look for fish?
I'll be staying in the river. You get June and July, August. You know, that's when I shaky head, drop shot. You know, some people may want to throw a football jig or a Carolina rig. I don't throw those a lot. I'm a big fan of the drop shot and a big fan of the shaky head. And then I like Texas rig, but you can go down the grass line, fish it, or you can find cuts. And there's certain spots in the river where we just know they always, like on any lake, you got your sweet spots where in the summertime they'll group up, and you can pull up and catch a lot of fish. You can have June and July can be pretty fun. If you can beat the about midday on Saturdays, you tend to have the recreational people start coming out, you know, skiing, running around. We actually on the river. The river feeds into here. We'll actually have recreational boats. So,
recreational boating seems. I'm looking at this lake in back of you, and I'm just thinking, how can somebody ski in a lake like that?
The river is wide open.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's
of course,
not
the river,
but it is wide open.
In the river, you probably have 12-foot long alligators too.
Yes, out behind me. You have big alligators. Yeah, that's one thing this lake does have.
Sure.
I'm sure where you're from, y'all are used to that.
Oh yeah, and also you always see people out there with their kids water skiing. I'm like, not my kids. I know what lives in that water, and I'm a fisherman. I've seen how fast those alligators can move. You know.
No, Jesus has given me more common sense than that. Just the idea of even my power poles getting stuck and me having to get in the water and help get them up makes me nervous. I've seen last year we had a little an old hidden oxbow behind this spawning flat that we like to fish. It's a local spot, and you sneak through here and it just opens up in the old oxbow and catch a lot of fish in there in the springtime. And there was a big male alligator in there that had probably 5 or 6 females with him. And all the females would always go down and hide, and he never would go down. And I'm telling you, he's the biggest alligator I've ever seen, and he was 13 feet easy. And it made me nervous, and I'm in a 21-foot boat. And I mean, but he never would go down. He'd just sit there and stare at you.
Well, he's 100 years old. He's seen a lot of people. He's not afraid of you.
Yeah.
He's not afraid of you. He's got 5 girls he needs to impress. So,
yeah, I think he was trying to tell me to get off his yard.
Yeah. Hey, I own this water.
Right. Yeah.
I give you 25,000 acres over there. This is my water.
Correct.
Okay. How about fall when it starts to get cold? How are you going to be fishing?
Man, I love to throw a white crankbait.
White crankbait. Okay.
I love to throw a white crankbait, that one that runs about 6 feet.
Like a shad wrap.
Yeah, or a bomber or a banded, just a white crankbait.
Well, a little one, a little guy.
Things have been around 30 years. But,
shad wraps have been around a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
But when it starts getting really cold, there's nothing better than an Alabama rig. I mean, that's a game changer. I mean,
my buddy Rob likes his Alabama rigs, man. Yeah, you just throw that big old thing out there and just crank, nice and slow.
Yeah,
I'm good for about 5 casts.
I know it. I just turned 51. It is rough on my shoulder, but I will tell you, back in 2013 or maybe 2014, I did a trip in December. It was a Christmas present, and I had an 11-1, and my client had a 10-10 on the same day on the A rig. So that took my pastor out one time just for some fellowship, and had a 984 on an Alabama rig. That on this lake, that Alabama rig catches really, really big fish. Wow.
My buddy Cajun Rob says he'll throw an Alabama rig till his arms fall off.
Yeah, most people had a good day with it. They just put up with it. They know there's a lot of maintenance to it, but the potential. I mean, you might have 2 5s on one cast. I mean, they're when you find them schooling, it's insane. And by the way, to get 2 3-pound white bass on one cast, if you think a 6, 7, 8 pound bass is fun to catch, which it is.
It is.
You watch a client with 2 2.5 pound whites on at the same time, and you watch him trying to fight that in, and the whites are fighting each other. It makes for fun. It makes for a fun cast and fun catch.
Sure. Cajun Rob wants to know what's your favorite Alabama rig setup.
Man, I keep it simple. I throw a. I'm trying to think of the. I don't spend a lot of money on that. I go to Academy and buy the Yum. I can't even think of the name of it right now.
Probably, yeah. They're white swim bait.
Well, on the baits, I throw the Berkeley. I throw the little Berkeley swim baits. I know they've got
like the grass pig.
Well, no, the Berkeley makes a little swim bait. It's got a lighter hook, and it's a lighter. It's all one package. Look, you can spend $20 on an A rig, and then go spend another $10 on the jigs, and then spend. I keep it simple. Flash Mob Junior. I think the name. So I get a Yum Flash Mob Junior, and then
that's a small one. Yeah.
Yeah, and then. I keep it simple, and then
so are you talking the Berkeley swim shads?
Yeah, like the little swim baits. Yes, sir. They have the hook and the lead's already in them.
Sure, yeah, that's how they sell them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
little package of 5. Yeah.
Rob likes the Yum Flash Mob too.
Sir.
My buddy Rob just commented he likes the Flash Mobs too.
Yeah, a lot of people up here for the money, man. Look, you're going to go through. When I have 3 guys in the boat and we're all throwing A rigs, there's a lot of stumps up here. We go through a lot of them, so I keep that pretty simple. I try not to spend any more money than I have to on those A rigs, and they work.
Yeah, when you have five rigs out, you're casting, and each one of those rigs has a hook. The problem, and you're casting through stumps.
Yeah, so you figure there's 3 of us. That's 15 hooks being thrown out. So, look, for anyone that's watching this, this is something a lot of people may already know this that fish a lot, but when you're throwing that A rig and you hook a stump, if you'll stop and not set the hook and then troll over to the backside and pop, it'll pop right out. But if you keep yanking on it, you're going to lose your bait. So one of the first things I tell my clients when we're throwing the A rigs, I'm like, look, as soon as you feel something, if it's not a fish, don't reel, don't yank, just stop. Let me troll over to it. We'll reel up, and then it'll get on the opposite side, and it pops right off every single time. So if you want to save $25, that's free advice. A lot of people may already know that, but I see so many people hook into something and they just keep yanking trying to get it to pull loose. And all you're going to do is wind up getting more than one of those hooks into that stump, and you're never going to get your bait back.
I think I learned that after I had spent $2,000 because of my yanking. Yeah, that's how I learned that. You know, it's the same thing with believe it or not, it's the same thing with rocks too. As long as you don't do a whole lot of this.
Right.
I've actually had clients, break rods. I think I have a fish. No, you don't have a fish.
Yeah. See, where we get our rods broke up here is people that don't mean to do it, but they'll throw a bait in the tree, and then they're pulling the rod like this while I'm trying to get to the tree. And, I've had several rods over the years get broke, and, you can't let that steal your joy. You just have to, but you try to explain to them, look, you just let me get to the tree and we'll get the bait out if we can. If not, we'll cut the line. But a lot of people get aggravated when they get hung in a tree and they start yanking on it. And the best way to do that is keep your rod straight and pull like you're trying to wipe your belt off. Just keep it, level with the water. When you start pulling it up like that, using the bend against it, you're never going to get nowhere with that.
Yeah, that makes me cringe up just thinking about it. Then next thing you know, you
yeah, or the bait flies out and it flies right at your head. Yeah. You get a lot of people up here that
right between the eyes.
Fish the trees a lot, so
right between the eyes.
Right.
I've had to have so many hooks taken out of my head and arms and back and fingers guiding. It's just an occupational hazard. It happens.
I've been really blessed with that. I haven't had that issue, but before I started guiding, I've got a brother in Christ who fishes professional now, and I actually hit him in the back of the head with a crankbait one time and had to take him to the hospital, and I've never heard the end of it.
No.
I had to learn the hard way to pay attention.
I did that to my dad when I was 12, and then I had to learn how to get back into a boat.
Right.
He's like, "Oh, you want back into the boat? No, I'm not going to help you. I was thinking about help. No, I'm not going to help you. I'm too busy trying to take this crankbait out of the back of my head." Oh, geez. Thanks, Dad. It's cold.
So, didn't you tell me you used to guide at one time? How many years did you guide?
17.
And that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a good long run, but it had to come to an end. Yeah. Now I'm having a great time as an outdoor communicator. And
amen.
I met a lot of really great people and caught a lot of great fish. Got to watch a lot of kids catch their first fish and adults catch their first fish. Got to teach people how to fish and see their eyes light up when they hook into their first decent bass by themselves.
Amen. That's definitely the two things I love about it. So God opened the door for me to do it back in 2012, and I've been thankful to him ever since. But you're right. The two things that I love the most are watching a kid, his light bulb get bright, and him figuring it out on his own, and then the relationships I've made. I mean, I've had people from Russia, from China, from South Africa, from Australia, from Canada. I mean, I've had people from all over, even the country California. I mean, I've had people from all over the place who have come here to Caddo to fish Caddo. And so you get to meet a lot of people that, that I'm never going to go those places. So it's pretty cool how God brings them to my boat, and we get to have fellowship in the boat, and we get to fish.
That was definitely my favorite part of guiding. And then,
amen.
Then afterwards we'd sit in the bait shop, and they had a little restaurant on the side of the bait shop. We'd have lunch together. Then, I'd have to meet my second guide party of the day,
Right.
That was a good fishing day when I get to fish from 6 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. That's a good day. I was younger back then.
Yeah,
then I had an hour drive back home.
Yeah, that just made my back hurt thinking about that.
Yeah. Well, I did a lot of instruction, and I didn't do a whole lot of fishing when I guided most of the time. Okay. Some guys wanted me to because they wanted to see how I handled the lures, how I handled the rods, and how I casted. But for the most part, I was there to teach and make sure nobody got hooked with back casts. And
right. In the springtime, I've actually got trip Friday and Saturday with 3 gentlemen, and they were a little nervous about making sure that I didn't do a lot of fishing. And I explained to them that, that's fine. I won't. If you don't want me to, I won't hardly do any casting. But I said, you're going to want me, if you've never fished cypress trees, you're going to want to see me cast, see how I attack it, how I try to, like up here, you want to throw past the tree. You don't want to throw, I see so many people want to throw right on the base of the tree. And this time of year, you want to throw past the tree and work the bait toward it. Or if you're throwing a finesse, use that bottom of that tree like a backboard. Let it hit, fall in there real natural, just where it's not making a big splash. Or skip it in there real quiet. But a lot of people that don't fish trees, they throw overhand, and they're trying to throw overhand at that tree. And for us Louisiana folks or Texas folks that fish these cypress trees, you got to throw it sidearm or flip it or something. And so it's good for them to see me do that a little bit to where they can kind of figure it out.
In fact, if I can go up to the tree and turn off my trolling motor, even pull my trolling motor up and just kind of, very gently grab the tree and just gently put that wacky rig down on that cypress tree and work it all the way around. That works sometimes, but what you're saying is definitely a better. If you can be 40 feet away from it and skip it into the tree,
right,
and bounce it off the tree.
Up here, this lake gets so much pressure. We have so many tournaments up here on this lake that your best bet is really making really long casts and being as quiet.
Skip it in.
Right, and making as natural of a presentation as you can. This time of year, your presentation and timing. Case in point, years ago, me and another guy had been fishing around a group of trees like behind me. Had gone through there, had fished it all week, and then had even fished it that day. Well, we had another gentleman that him and a friend of mine had come down from Missouri, and they were fishing this before I was guiding. He goes behind us, and he goes and fishes these same trees we had done hit that morning, and he catches a 1276 or 1278. And I remember me and my friend looking at each other, and that was when you're a lot of it's timing. So you may go by that tree at 10 o'clock. That female may not want to hit it. Somebody else come by at 12 o'clock, and that may be the time where she's really locked in or she's really aggressive, and she'll hit that bait. And at the same time, your presentation, you've got to really lay it in there real quiet.
Yeah. That's an interesting point. Yeah, that people say, that certain times of the year it changes daily. No, it changes hourly.
Yeah, it does. It does.
It's even between 10 and 11 o'clock. You're like, what the heck happens between 10 and 11 o'clock? Well, we don't know.
Yeah,
we don't know.
This whole month, because it's been cold. I know it's been warm the last 3 days, but it has been cold this month. So this whole month, the afternoon bite has been better. So you literally have been going through water from 7 o'clock to 12 o'clock and not getting hardly bit at all. And you can go back through that same water from 12 to 3 and, you can catch 10, 12 fish because they've got access. The water temp was getting up. So it's been, again, it's that timing. It's just timing.
So what you said is Caddo Lake is a very shallow lake.
Yes.
I'm looking I'm in the market now to buy a boat. And what would you recommend for a shallow water boat I still need to get up and go. I like fiberglass boats. What are you running and how do you like it?
Man, I run a Skeeter, and that Skeeter with that Yamaha show draft so shallow that I can be in 2 foot. I can be probably a foot and a half of water with 2 guys with me, so there'll be 3 of us.
And a full tank of gas, yeah.
And get up and go, and I mean, if the guy I deal with, which I just want to say this because he's a great guy, but Jeff Gage at Plano Marine in East Texas, over there in Longview, he's my Skeeter guy. And he just takes care of you better than anyone I've ever had take care of me. And I love the Skeeter. That's what I run.
Well, good, good, good. I know certainly a lot of people do run Skeeters, and you know it always makes me nervous. I'm looking at that lake in back of you. It kind of reminds me of most of the lakes I've been on in Texas, like Sam Rayburn or Toledo Bend, or every lake I've been in Louisiana. You know, geez, particularly every time I'm sitting in the passenger seat, you think, looking at a foreground like that, and we're going 70 miles an hour, like, great.
Yeah, but look, the cool thing about Caddo, which makes it so unique, is it's not like most lakes. A lot of people struggle with this, but I love it. We actually have big poles with channels that they've got letters and they're channel markers that we have boat runs all through here. So yes, if you get off the boat run, you're going to tear your boat up. But if you stay on the boat run, it's wide open, it's clean, and you just okay.
Because I'm thinking about Lake Fork. I'm thinking about Lake Fork, where I've actually had guides who guided every single day. And then I call them and they're like, "Man, my boat's down. I ruined another lower unit." I'm like, "You guide this like 200 days a year." And they're like, well,
right.
I was telling myself that too.
Yeah, Caddo's not like that. Caddo actually has there'll never be a place where you're on Caddo where there's not a boat lane, there's not poles. And the cool thing about it is, if you started at the park in Louisiana and you run up to the main river run, which is the main run is letter A.
Okay.
And you got A, B, C, D. They all go down. So it's real easy not to get lost because you just stay on the boat run and they're numbered. So you'd have like A1, A2, A3, A4. So if you ran up to A92 and you took a right on B, or you took a right on C or whatever, anyway, it's there. That's one blessing that Caddo has is the and even in your graphs that you have today in your boat, those letters will be on there when you pull up Caddo, or when you pull up the Caddo and you pull up in your boat. Those letters are in your boat, so it's real easy to follow.
Okay. Well, you know what, man, Vince, it certainly was nice having you on the show.
Yeah, this has been fun.
Is there anything else you'd like to say before we close?
Oh, I not that I can think of. I mean, it's
okay.
The two things I love to talk about is my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, who saved me.
Okay.
And fishing.
Yeah.
And I think without Jesus, I couldn't make it any day.
I completely agree with you.
Amen.
I could not. Truer words have never been spoken. Truer words have never been spoken than that. Well, anyways, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning into the Let's Talk Fishing podcast. Again, my name is Jay Angel. You have been tuned into the Let's Talk Fishing video podcast with very, very special guests, Caddo Lake guide from Caddo Lake Fellowship, Vince Richards. And please, everybody, be safe out there.